It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And if I'm going to do August, then I'll do it now because it's a Jupiter hour Venus day, right before we go to a Mars night, which I believe will happen in the episode. Yes, the ascendant is ruled by a retrograde Saturn, and the midheaven is ruled by our beloved Mars, that is in 11 degrees Virgo. Mercury on the anaretic degree of Leo, the moon in Sagittarius, separating from square to Saturn as it applies to Antares, actually. So we can have, I wouldn't risk it with an Antares election, but you can try. And Jupiter here on the IC, the nodes in Libra and Aries respectively. Chiron is already retrograde, so, and the Sun in 5 degrees Leo, separating from its polarity or opposition to Pluto. That's the chart. This is what we have. This is what we win with. So let's talk about August. Going to astroseek.com here, and I'm looking at it live with you, as I love doing. Kind of capture my own thought process as I go through the data, so it's not the well-documented person who did like notes and such, but actually doing it live with you. So for August, let's see if we can have a chart here. For August, we're gonna have Pluto keeping to go back in Capricorn. We're gonna have Saturn, okay, both Pluto and Saturn retrograde, going back closer and closer to Fomalhaut, crossing even Fomalhaut, but staying in Pisces. Neptune retrograding for another degree or two. Chiron is going to go up for a degree and a half back in Aries, so to the 18th degree. The nodes are going to arrive at 27 degrees, Aries and Libra. And Jupiter is going to go up a notch to the 15 degrees of Taurus. Uranus is going to go a degree forward in Taurus to the 23rd degree. So Uranus will finally be leaving the 22nd degree, which I will talk in length about. And so Mercury will already have its retrogrades. Yes, Mercury getting a retrograde. Let's go. Yeah, Mercury is moving retrograde in the end of August, August 23rd. But this will happen in Virgo. So Mercury ingresses to Virgo and then goes retrograde. Venus retrograde the entire month up until here the 12 degrees of Leo. And Lilith moving forward to conjunct where Venus is right now. So Lilith is approaching the degree where Venus went retrograde. Okay, it's something important because when something triggers the retrograde point, and when that something is another mythical goddess that has to do with protecting women, and going from the gut feeling and acting on it, then we're gonna have things to do with that. So something we want to pay attention to. Mars will be moving forward and ingressing into Libra towards the end of the month. That's about what we have. So for the retrogrades, well, we're gonna have, except for Mars, we're gonna have and Jupiter, All the planets go in retrograde, including Uranus. It goes retrograde on August 29th. So we're ending this month with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, including Chiron, 8 bodies in the skies are retrograde. Aries is also retrograde. I thank Astro Catherine for noting that. So we're gonna pay attention to Aries too, because Aries in Aries, going back, and Chiron are going to dredge up that which we have not invited into the conversation. And it's kind of like it's a combination of Kramer from Seinfeld and the famous door opening and bursting in. But with Aries, she's not like Kramer from Seinfeld. It's like door opening, bursting in, and it's something you really didn't want to bring up into the convo. And now it's like, poof, there's an elephant in the room. And it causes chaos. And she also comes with quite a bit of a baggage, so she may enjoy this chaos that is created in the room, because anyway she feels unaccepted, so the least she can do is drive people nuts over their own irrationality. So she's like the town's full, but with venom. Okay. So that's what's going on. Lunations. So we have 3 of them. We have 3 lunations. We have the full moon in Aquarius on August 1st. So we open up the month with a full moon in Aquarius, 9 degrees. Then August 16, a new moon. And the new moon is in Leo, co-present with the sun. So naturally, new moon. My mind is weird right now. So, yeah. And the full moon in Pisces on August 31st. So we open the month with the lunation and we close the month with the lunation. There are a lot of astrologers who do forecasts by looking at the moon. When I look at this, we're going to have 3 lunations. So rather than doing it the usual way, I will do it with the moon, because the moon here is quite significant, even though it's a solar month. And the moon will trigger whatever is up in the sky, so we're going to talk about it all. Immediately I want the asteroids here. Ooh. Custom chart generator. Okay, that's another nice function that I pressed on by chance. So, 1st August, full moon. We just entered August, full moon. Sun is already in Leo, of course. And she's in 8 degrees Leo. Here, this is not the lunation, this is the ingress of the moon to Aquarius. And something interesting about the ingress of the moon to Aquarius, right before the full moon, it's a growing moon, the moon will be squaring the nodes, okay, squaring Humea, and I'm going to talk about Humea with the square here, because Humea is around connectivity to nature and fertility related to that nature. Okay, so moon squaring it, and Humea is now with Ketu. So it's something that we can retreat to. Here we can retreat to Mother Nature. But on the Rahu level, we have Aries retrograde, which I'll talk about. and the moon is trining Sedna in 0 degrees Gemini. So upon the ingress, we're going to have this harmonious meeting of Sedna and the moon. And Sedna, the Sedna story is basically the daughter that lived in a certain culture where the father believed that she didn't want to marry everybody, like she didn't want to grow up, get married, and so on. So the father sold her to somebody, okay, so that he believed he can take care of them. But she ran away from this person who was violent. And then she went to her father, and I think trying to locate her father, and he was on a boat or something, and he basically threw her off the boat, and she tried to hold on to the boat and cut off her fingers or cut off her hands, and then she drowned and became the queen of the underworld. So Sedna stories are those stories where women are being sold by the family, by the father, and while the father doesn't understand the misbehavior of the girl, but he wants a man to take care of her, and maybe he believes that she needs a man with a hard hand. Eventually, in the Sedna story, the father understood that what he did there was not the right thing to do for her, and he regretted he had to live with the remorse all his life for what he did to his child. She had already drawn, like she became the queen of the underworld. And so we have those situations where, especially with parents and children, especially with Sedna and Gemini, where the parent does not know what to do, how to do good for the child. The parent does not know how to do good for the child. And as a result, the child lives basically in a society that is disrespectful to the choices of the individual. Okay. And this trying to Sedna basically means that we're gonna have these Sedna stories, and you can take this transit, and if you have a person that you know, people that you know, some people publish on Twitter sometimes this trans kid needs a cell phone. Okay? This person ran out of home. This woman, this neurodivergent, got fired. A woman on Twitter, she got fired from a job because she did not agree to be sex trafficked, basically. Okay, sexual harassment, and then she didn't allow this, and then she got fired. But basically, they wanted her to be a sex worker at the library, and she has a son, and they have a cat, and they're now homeless. So those type, and if you want to donate, it's on my Twitter. It's Strudel Tali Shear on Twitter, and you can see I post there. I bring it up every day, and you can take advantage of this transit to make a donation for Sedna. Okay, that's one way you can honor Sedna people that went out of violence, that the fathers or the men in society didn't treat them well. And without judging anyone, let's just help these people. And this is one way you can honor Sedna. Another way you can honor Sedna, Sedna is Inuit goddess. Okay, so honoring Inuit culture, whether by learning about Inuit people, if there are donations to people specifically. And here I say to people specifically because, again, what the Sedna story is basically a person that fell beneath between the chairs. In Hebrew, we have the sentence to fall between the chairs. Basically, it means that your case doesn't fit this fund, it doesn't fit that fund, and you don't get help from anyone. And that's like Sedna literally drowned, okay? And so when we address the people rather than through a fund, then they don't have to fall between the chairs. There's a person that's standing to it. So that's one way to kind of honor sadhana and to assist to people. Sadhana in Gemini, so people are going to need, if you have a card or ticket for public transport and you can afford another ticket or to have some more money so you can afford having people that don't have money to pay, or you can pay for them, that can be an act of kindness. The other day, I remember I was working with Mercury and I was taking the bus, okay? And there were two ladies and one man, people of color. So the man passed the ticket, but he passed once and not on his wife too. And then, of course, the ticket person came and she started talking to them. And because I speak the language well and I come across as, of the community, then I told her, you see, this is the problem of accessibility and so on and so on. I start talking to her and talking to her and talking to her. And of course I say, it's not you, you're just doing your job. But then kind of philosophizing about accessibility of public transportation, cultural differences. And then the next station comes and this ticket lady, she has to go, so she didn't give them a report. Okay, so you can do it like that too. You just be the kind person that, without disrespecting anyone, just steps in and allows for more flexibility towards the people who need it. So yeah, that's the Sedna story. And we're gonna have the moon conjuncting Pluto right before it ingresses into Aquarius. Another cycle of the moon in Pluto. So we're gonna get deeply informed right before we begin August about the underlying mechanisms of our hierarchical structure. So anything that has a hierarchy, I don't care if it's a woman on top, man on top, black person, not white person, anything that has a hierarchy to it, we're going to find out how this hierarchical thought works, and Pluto is going to delve deeper and deeper into the core of how these things work. Also wealth, who funds what, and so on and so forth. So that is very interesting. That's the ingress. Now, because we're starting off with the lunation, of course I want to talk about the lunation, and this is where the moon is 9 degrees Aquarius. So every lunation deserves its own episode, but as a part of the entire forecast, I want to see the asteroids here. So now we're going to see the moon. The full moon is applying to Chariklo. Chariklo is retrograde. Chariklo, and I thank Astro Victor for mentioning her, is about the type of healing we get from other worlds. So art, music, spirituality, frequency, and light. You know, these people that download light keys, light language to balance your nervous system. That can be a Chariklo thing here. And when she's retrograde, she's kind of rethinking how to do that, how to bring that healing. What did we receive that is of energy and frequency, or maybe even aliens, okay, kind of being aliens that assist in healing. That can be the case for some people. Sun in 9 degrees Leo. This moon, well, it trines Ceres and Makmak in Libra. Ceres is Demeter, so she's the goddess of the crops, and she's also the mother of Persephone. And so she's governing the mothers that have their daughters being taken away, or the mothers that lost their children, or have their children taken away, or even mothers that have shared custody and don't have their children all the time with them. I don't know if it's only mothers, so probably men can apply to Ceres too. And that happens in Libra. So Ceres in Libra, it means different legislation around these women. In Israel, actually, with the unfortunately religious revolution that we recently had, the instead of the court deciding on shared custody or not for women and what money will women get from the men if they divorce, then they turned it to the rabbinical authorities. And there are pros and cons to that, but that's different legislation concerning mothers, concerning the custody over their children. I'm also kind of satellite accompanying or energy accompanying a case that actually exposes pedophilia in very high ranks, and where the mother has lost it, like the father is genuinely hurting her children, and they were taken actually from the mother, and she was sent to 6 times diagnosis from a psychiatrist, which is very bizarre. Never, she speaks out and she said, nobody sues me for what I say because I speak the truth, and that thing is also in the working. So we're gonna have these cases, difference, and this is serious in Libra in general. The full moon is triggering it, so maybe there were laws that were already passed and you didn't know of in the havoc of pandemics, wars, whatnot. So you're gonna be exposed to certain laws that now either your country has, or certain legislation around the shared custody, around children being taken away, maybe by the welfare, and some more awareness of it. It's a small cycle, so let's hope people will at least be illuminated and they will know. And this moon is also squaring Jupiter, Jupiter in Taurus, which opposes Psyche in Scorpio. So Jupiter, Jupiter is considered the great benefic. The other thing with Jupiter is also about philosophy and religion. With Taurus, it's either philosophies around the land or religions that are around Mother Nature or Mother Earth, like simply put. And the other way that it can go is because Taurus is a fixed sign, an earth sign, that can be a bit traditional. Okay, the triplicity ruler, the triplicity lord is Saturn for the earth signs, and that can mean certain religions that are orthodox, like very orthodox or traditional women, okay, beliefs of traditional women, and that can have pros and cons for itself. This square kind of creates a tension between those traditional beliefs, both of Mother Earth and of the traditional woman, or religions or sects or cults around those things, are at odds with the cycle of the moon. So there's some exposure that puts these traditions and philosophies in question. Okay, and this can be it can be many things. Okay, but definitely there is tension between the people who are believing in those traditional values and the exposures that the moon now brings. Jupiter, all in all, is a benefic, but here is something that can get complicated, okay? Because these very traditional views can be contrary to actually even the well-being of people and of women sometimes. So on a financial level, there can be a certain type of wealth that the moon here exposes. Okay, so wealth to do with the land, religious ownership over the land, connection between the religion and the philosophy, and the ownership of land, of cattle, um, stuff like that. Okay, it's just being exposed, and it's not very convenient for those who rely on this type of wealth. Okay? Jupiter in Taurus wealth is comfortable things. You know, I just went to Tel Aviv yesterday and I found, it was a Jupiter day, I found a big, I think it is like a 2 liter beer cup unused that somebody threw, which of course I adopted. I brought it home and I cleaned it. It's from Austria. So it was a Carlsberg beer glass from Austria. I don't know. And I was looking for this big cup. I love big cups. I love to drink my water, and I don't drink beer, but I love to drink water or juices or whatnot or teas. And I just brought it home, and I couldn't help but thinking this is a very big cup. This is 2 liters. It's bigger than I thought that I can imagine that I can own ever. And I would try to find them, but I wouldn't find them anywhere. So I just found that in the neighborhood of where I was walking back in Tel Aviv, and I have Jupiter now in Taurus. I have it in this third house. I have Taurus in the third house, so that was nice to walk around in the neighborhood and find a big, huge, comfortable cup. So that's the kind of wealth that Jupiter brings in Taurus. And I found shoes, which is again Jupiter ruling Pisces, that are 2 sizes bigger than me. They were Havaianas, Havaianas, uh, yeah, Havaianas shoes. And even though they were bigger than me, they had this like reflexology supportive. So I said, I'm going to bring it home and clean them up, and I actually use it. So that is Jupiter. It's something so big. It's very big, almost too big for your size. And that's Jupiter Taurus. So you can have clothes that are big, simply big clothes. If you're pregnant, that's a good time to go and find clothing. But you can also have a big plot of land. Okay. If you're buying land, then you might find a big lot of land. If you're growing fruits, it can come up very big. Okay, you can find big fruits. That can also happen. And it's very yielding. Okay, Jupiter Taurus is very yielding as an investment. But the thing is that if you have it on your 401k, in this donation, it may be okay. You found this great, like big box of chocolate, but it's not good for your nervous system because it gets you high. Or you find this, big chunk of beef, right? But then you kind of have to like wonder, is it too much for me? Is it gluttony to indulge in it, or is it just bad for my health to indulge in it? And what is the size that I should take from that? But on an investment level, it's very much the yielding bull, and you have to ask yourself, what is this money coming from? Because it's going to be exposed in this donation. So, where is the money coming from? You found gold. To whom did this gold belong? How did the people earn the gold? And all these things that are going to be in question. With the moon in the Aquarius, you might be required to share. Okay, you might be required to share something with the community. It's kind of more so kind of like, I was hoping I could keep it for myself. Oh, I found this big plot of land, and now like, oh, I need to share that. Or I found, I don't know, like 3 huge cups, and I was like, oh, I'll have this juice in that, that juice in that, that juice in that. Then you go home to your property and you're like, well, can you give me one or something like that? And you have to share it with the community. And here that can also be the simple, Taurian difficulty of sharing their lot, because they're very territorial, and it can be something as simple as that. On a mundane level, the wealth is required to be shared in a certain way. It's like, oh, until we managed to get out of this crisis, or we had this yielding investment, now the people want a part of it, something like that. So this is dissonation. And this trine Vesta here in Gemini. Now let's go to the next aspects of the moon. So we had Aquarius, then we have Pisces. August 3. Why am I getting full moon here? It's not full moon. August 3. The moon is already decreasing, okay, and it ingresses into Pisces. So the moon will conjunct Saturn and oppose Mars and Mercury. Mercury ingress into Virgo. So let's check this Mercury ingress. I'm gonna make a stop to check to want to see the ingress of Mercury. Okay, the ingress. Want to see ingresses. Retrogradity, but I want to see ingresses. No, I don't see it. I'm gonna have to. It's only one day. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Mercury is already 4 degrees Virgo. So we start this with the Mercury Virgo. And the moon is going, okay, we're gonna have the full moon, and then we're gonna have the moon ingressing into Pisces, applying to oppose Mercury in Virgo, and applying to conjunct Saturn retrograde. Any touch of the moon to Saturn, to this Saturn retrograde, if you have to go sailing for some reason, then, or you have to go to the sea, then do what you can to protect yourself, okay? Whether you use astrological stuff or magic, just take extra precaution, okay? Because those are the days where it can be more dangerous, more like disastrous, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You need to see how can you protect yourself. I can't remedy, like, I can't tell you how to remedy that, because this is life and death. So I can't say, oh, you do that and your life will be saved. I don't know what will save your life, and I don't know if that will not do worse. But the thing is that this Saturn here is retrograding Pisces, and you will need to address that if you absolutely have to sail, if you absolutely have to travel. There's also Jupiter. Or if you have to visit the ocean or the sea, or even to go swimming. Okay, there's more danger of drowning, simply put. Other than that, the moon will also trigger right before that, the moon will also trigger this Venus retrograde. And Venus here is in 26 degrees Leo. She is trining Aries in Aries. So she's touching on the Aries in Aries, the usual Venus retrograde stuff with the notion of Aries. So we're gonna have very eloquent, enraged women or trans women that are going to embody this energy and will be able to express themselves perhaps more eloquently, But with Mercury here in Virgo opposing Saturn, this was also true to the lunation, which I did a video about. The words, the communication. Okay, there's something about the communication. You can watch the video, it's actually quite funny. But Mercury here with the opposition to Saturn, there is that eloquency, but something about the communication is either being regulated or removed. Okay, it's just something like that going on. Now let's look at the moon. Will continue to oppose Mars. And this is a day, okay, this happens on Friday, 4th August, here in the Middle East. You will have to adjust it to your time. When the moon opposes Mars, these are a couple of hours where harsh words can be said, accidents can happen if you're working, with your herbs or stuff. Some accidents can happen. So those are, a couple of hours where you either want to be very cautious, you want to take a break, but it can also happen on a break, and that's an uncomfortable couple of hours. Going on with the moon, we get the moon conjunct Neptune. But Neptune is retrograde. So this is a time where you can get dreamy. It's a good time to experience some, well, I wouldn't say it's best for out-of-body experiences because of the retrograde Neptune. It's like too much energy. But you can enjoy your experiences or the type of art or movies or music that doesn't have a particular form or shape. It is abstract expression. And your emotions might take such shape as well. You might be doing better with painting them than with, or with poetry than with trying to communicate something of essence. This will also sextile Pluto because Neptune sextiles Pluto. So there is depth and transformative quality to this effect. August 6th, moon is in Aries. It's trining the sun, which is nice. It's a decreasing moon, trining the sun, applying to conjunct Chiron. So when the moon conjuncts Chiron retrograde, that's the day where you're gonna feel a bit wounded. You're gonna feel a bit wounded. And that's another, like this is pull out your self-help kit, your self-care kit from the closet, and practice that. But other than that, I don't see like a big deal here. Venus is already very tightly, it's already gone through the exact trine with Aries, and she's tightly applying to conjunct Lilith again. So with the additive of Moon with Chiron, Venus with Lilith trining Aries. Somebody said on Twitter, if I was a man, I just wouldn't this month. This is very true, but of course, since you cannot erase yourself, and like 99% of the cases, 0.99, it's also not desirable in as much as you think it is desirable. But this is a good time to hug your teddy. Like, I'm not joking. I'm absolutely not. Get yourself a stuffy and hug your stuffy. Stay away from news, social media. And if you're on YouTube, what I suggest you to do, if you're a man, okay, social media on YouTube, is something I actually started doing on Facebook. you know these posts where they're like cute animals, design homes, cabin in the woods, stuff like that. Start start sharing these to your page and start focusing on that early on so that when the clock ticks, basically when you open your social media, you see cabins in the woods, sweet cats, maybe broody, the golden doodle, um, and are surrounded with things that are affirming, accepting, and supporting of you. Because you're gonna need to escape, and usually people open up YouTube or something like that, and you want to have like a cushioned bed for you when you do that. So what you don't want to do is be involved in all the political discussion that's going on, because there will be. If you have been having wounds around being a man, maybe times you overstepped boundaries, maybe times boundaries were overstepped towards you. So, granted that you're not on the speaking up side, with the moon Chiron here, you like the best to do is to hug a stuffy. Okay, so you can hug your stuffy and you can prepare your social media in advance so that when you land smoothly, you land safely. If there's something that absolutely must get to you, it will get, okay? And all before the Me Too era, I was getting away from all types of news, social media, this and that, and then the person who would be basically harassing me later began to talk about the case where his good friend and mentor was accused and found guilty in sexual harassment, and then we had the dean that had another case, and I was like, I was really supporting myself and doing all the self-care in the world, but then it happened at work. So if there's something that absolutely must get to you, it will. That being said, I'm not saying run away from the world. I'm saying support yourself with this. Okay, that's what I'm saying basically, because it's going to get discussiony, and there are going to be things that are um, triggering everything, and going back to where we were in 2016, in 2015, all of these things. Okay, so if you had a crazy ex, if you were the crazy ex, something at work, you overstepped boundaries, somebody overstepped boundaries, you're gonna have all these things, and you see that coming up, so you want to be prepared. You want to be prepared, and prepared not with ammunition, but actually with leafness, okay, with cuteness, with things that make you feel good, fluffy things. Like really, you really want to prepare the fluff, because you're gonna need fluff. And I know with Aries it's very difficult to understand that, but the fluffy things, the fluffy animals, something of nature, natural, like fluffy vital animals playing or something like that. That's very much where you want to take that. Um, yeah. And so the moon will later conjunct Aries and trigger this meter weather and atomic bomb pilot speaking up. And it's kind of like, the combat soldiers that have PTSD, and the women that have PTSD, and the queers and the trans people of the world that have PTSD, and the neurodiverse, they all summon up together. And if you're not a part of the party, it's gonna be really, really, And like I said, Aries Pluto can be a bunch of trans and queer people having an orgy. So, but here, these people, it's very difficult to orgasm because they had traumas. Okay, so they're not happy. And what they get connected by is either rage or trauma, um, or sharing their weird experiences, that are very unusual and are triggering in every single thing, you know? It's like they're triggering everyone and everybody, and that includes you, especially you even. And they're going to enjoy it. They're going to love it. No, they're just going to love that peculiarness of things. If you're not that type of person, either you're going to become that person for a day, which will happen to you because Aries is in your chart somewhere, or you're going to play that role, especially if you have personal planets. There might be you or might be someone close to you that plays that Aries role. Okay? If you know, okay, if you know that you have a friend, spouse, child, or someone that is very, very moved by this chaos and can instigate this chaos, this is the day where I would take a day off from them. Okay? This is the day where, because they will be compelled to do so. They're going to trigger you and bring everything up because they are healed by it. Because they're not doing that against you. They are healed by it. They are healed. And by the time I was speaking as one of them, when we would get these exposures around, or when Me Too suddenly got to the astrological community, okay, my body felt release of energy and relaxation because I was expecting something, but nobody talks about it. So when we finally speak, for us, our body is in relief. It's like, oh, it finally is out. Oh, finally it's out. But for the people outside of these circles, it's incredible shock, okay? Before that, it was with the psychological community. So it was a psychologist that treated a person that came after childhood sexual trauma, and then they gain trust, and then they re-trigger the trauma in the exact same fashion of the offender on purpose, and hurt the patient, raped the patient. Okay, so it's those type of things. Okay, so if you're outside of it, it's like, oh my God, this is shocking. If you're within the community of people, like, we faced these atrocities, we saw this, and finally it's out. Finally, so we feel relief. But if you're not one of that, you're gonna feel very triggered, and it's going to be very shocking to you. And it's like that sense of connection is kind of like you're gonna need your day off. Or you might be that person. Later, the moon will grow over Rahu, okay? As it will go from Aries to Rahu, Pluto is exactly squaring Rahu, so the moon will square Pluto. Yes, it's conjuncting Chiron, conjuncting Aries, and then squaring Pluto, because Aries squares Pluto, all the while trining this Venus and Lilith. With Rahu, of course, there are going to be fated events. It's not a full moon, it's not a new moon, but it is a very moony month, although it's the month of the sun. Okay, we have 3 lunations, 3 important lunar events. And this square to Pluto, when Pluto is squaring the nodes retrograde, again, some fated exposures around the government, the global government, anything patriarchal, but also, matriarchal too. Okay, anything that has hierarchy, is going to, something fated happens there. Some exposure, some realization, some crisis, because it's connected to the squaring the nodes. It's a crisis, transformative crisis of Venus and Mars. So it can be crisis around masculinity, femininity, that is related somehow to the government or to the laws. In Israel we had Irani revolution quasi type of legislation. But no less scary than that was the entire um, newspaper system. All of the newspapers in Israel on that day showed a black, like a black screen, a black page. And that is no less scary than, you're not sure. The Orthodox, they are called black because they wear black. So it's kind of like you're not sure if what's more scary, this type of Orthodox black that negate the rights of women and people, and let me not even mention in LGBTQ community, um, or that type of blacks that have the money to buy all of the media as protesters and set it all to one color, which happened to be black. So it's like, and Pluto is, Saturn is black and Pluto is black. So it's kind of like, you look at that and everywhere was like, oh, the song I want it painted black. Okay. But this is not Black Lives Matters. It's genuinely oppressing of rights. Very interesting to see how the connotation to black and blackness is basically so culture dependent and so context dependent when I think about this. So the moon is going to trigger that point, and Pluto is retrograde. Some more weird legislation can come up, but also the reaction is going to be as weird. And a resolution is usually resolved at the point, if the T-square, which you can't see here, is with the Pluto on top, then the other polarity of Pluto in Capricorn is basically 28 degrees of Cancer. So again, my last decan and last term of Cancer ascendant that are going through this Pluto opposing your ascendant here in these events, as well as my last decan of Capricorn ascendants. Okay, my heart is with you. My heart is with you. You're going through something that pinpoints you from an opposition. Okay, so you might feel alone, you might feel isolated. There's a certain part, you might not be able to participate in things, or you are participating by force in certain things. And to a lesser degree, the last decans of ascendants of Libra and Aries, which is the square, which is also a point of tension. So that fixed cardinal, that cardinal, why is saying fixed? Because of Pluto. It's like, oh, you are a cardinal. Okay, you are a cardinal, but Pluto is kind of gives you this fixed energy. And it's very difficult to start something new here because there's something fated, there's something, you're usually instigating things, and now life is happening to you more so than you're initiating here, unless you are a Capricorn. But with Capricorn ascendant here, at this point, I think you feel life is happening to you, although you may be initiating things. It's just the difficult cardinal axis now that is a very deep stress point of Plutonian themes. It can be even that you are the ones who are being exposed, especially when the sun was in Cancer then. But now the sun is in Leo. You might be exposed in some way, or there's a secret that you are revealing, or there's a secret that you're finding out, but you can't quite talk about it, something like that. And yeah, life is happening to you more so than, that's the point. And then the moon will go to Taurus finally. So we're gonna have a little bit of a hot spot with moon conjuncting Jupiter, squaring the sun. Again, this is like I talked about with Jupiter. Jupiter is simply, you find a cup that is way bigger than your size. Okay? And is square to the sun, so there might be a bit of drama, philosophical drama, religious drama. something like this, or dramas around the children, or your children are very playful, or they're more, somebody has the sweet tooth, like that is not something that is all too difficult. Because of the square to the sun, that's the only thing that can bring up an ego clash between different leaders with different beliefs. That's on a mundane level what can happen, also on a personal level. But other than that, the moon is squaring Jupiter. The moon is applying to Jupiter. Okay, this is your joy day. You might just beware of excess, but this is your joy day. And then August 9 still, the moon will go over Uranus. And Uranus is in 22nd degrees of Taurus. What we have here, as the moon is going over Uranus, is applying to trine Pluto. And what we're having in this, I don't think I'll do the whole month. It will be 2 episodes. It will be 2 episodes. Because I need to charge my phone. The 22nd degree, according to Nikolai Stoyanovich, degree theory is the degree of to kill or be killed. Uranus can be terror, can be bombings, can also be natural disaster, it can be like an earthquake or something. But here it denotes that on a mundane level certain people die. Okay, it can also be connected with suicide here, but on the 22nd is more like suicide bombing, something like that. So this Uranus is squaring Venus retrograde, squaring Lilith. Sudden revolution, sudden revolt. It can be even women protesters, but all women suicide bombers can also be the case. Other than that, it can be an artistic form that depicts something to do with death. Here's the thing about the protests and bodies laying on the ground, but it's an actual protest. Because it's Uranus, they can be something that begins as such a thing, but people are actually getting killed. So that's the doom and gloom. And the most positive, it can be a sudden revelation, a sudden controversy around art that has to do with the art being about, death and so on, or killing or being killed. Or a song that talks about this. Whenever moon goes and conjuncts Uranus, it's always difficult for the nervous system. It's overwhelming. It's an outer planet that meets the most personal planet, which is the moon. So we are in an overwhelm of frequencies, downloads, and eurekas, but also shock and terror. So this is the that point. Uranus is lovely for astrology. Uranus is lovely for changes on a mass scale, but you can't ignore the other things that can happen. Later the moon will conjunct Algol, again here with the square to Venus. So it's it's the moon going over Algol. It's better in magic than on a mundane level. And it happens every month, so it's not something that's particular. It's not illumination that happens here. And then we're gonna have this moon triggering Sedna. So 0 degrees Gemini is moon triggering Sedna. So August 10th, after the moon is triggering Sedna, which is again, donate to people that ran away from violence, that said no to violence and need, whether it's a ticket, whether it's a place to stay, communication, transportation, and so on and so forth. So Moon square in Saturn, square in retrograde Saturn, again one of these touches to Saturn. This can be something with the electricity goes wrong in a ship, okay, something like this. In general, on a psychological level, Saturn can mean coldness, can mean kind of feeling left out in the cold. Okay? It can be a feeling and it can be an actual experience. So it's a couple of hours, and you know that this is a couple of hours. It's not more than that. As the moon continues in Gemini, it squares Mars in Virgo with Mercury applying to it. So, but sextiles Venus retrograde. So the queen of harsh words. Okay, somebody is going to have, because Mars in Virgo is more an act of speech. It's a book that contains a harsh word. It's a thesis, an essay that is harsh with somebody. Yes, it can also be, as S.J. Anderson suggested, that people use tools from agriculture to as weapons. That can also be the case. But words are weapons. Herbs, okay, are weapons. Poisoning, stuff like that can be the case. With the moon squares Mars, okay, so there can be an accident around these things, or not an accident. Okay, it's not the 22nd degree, so it's not like, to kill on purpose, but there can be poisoning. It's not the best day to prepare a tincture to take it, unless you know what you're doing. If it's just a regular thing that you take, then you need to be aware of the dosages and if something may be spilling or breaking. So yeah, a little more. Moon ingressing into Cancer gives us a trine with Neptune. So at the end of Gemini, at the end of Gemini, the moon will square a retrograde Neptune. Okay, it's that Gemini hot spot where we had Mars square when Mars was in Gemini. Now the moon is triggering it. It's a square to Neptune. You can literally feel defeated. While when the moon applies to Aldebaran, which is 10 degrees Gemini, although it's separating from the square to Saturn, you can feel victorious. A day after, with this square to Neptune, you can literally feel defeated, lost, like life is happening to you more so that you instigate something, and sometimes life just bees like that. It's a couple of hours. Okay, moon is transient. That's the good thing about it, and the difficulty, because sometimes you want to keep the goodies. As the moon applies to Sirius, it will sextile Jupiter and Mercury. So this is the lovely day that we have here. It's a decreasing moon, okay? But it is where the moon is in a point in the sky that is protective, that is sweet, but you have to call on Sirius, okay? You have to see where is it? Do you have a moon day or hour in your area when it happens? And then you can not prepare talisman for Sirius, but you can definitely call on or work with a Sirius talisman if you have one, which later will be Procyon, is 25 degrees. But Procyon, okay, when the moon opposes Pluto, you want to call on Procyon, because Procyon rules this degree. It's a fixed star. And this is the star of sweetening things. Somebody comes to you with harsh words. Somebody comes to you with legislation. Somebody comes to you with this. Procyon is about taking this thing and sweetening it. Okay? Unlike Algol, which is deflecting, it's like take it back 10 times fold back to sender. And sometimes you need that. Okay? They're like, they won't even think to do it again if they will even be here to think to do something. And sometimes there are things where it's like, okay, this is like beyond the red line. Procyon takes it to another point of view. It's like somebody tells you, let's say, oh, you're sitting here recording on the grass videos for YouTube, but you don't know where you're gonna make money. It's like, why don't you get yourself a job? So instead of going Algon and it's like, you want me to cooperate with the human trafficking, it's going in the public sector, the private sector, the academia, the army. Okay, that's more, it's like giving them the energy 10 times fold. Procyon is like, darling, when was the last time you had a vacation? Because it looks like you need one. Can I make you a cup of tea? I got some lavender honey. Okay, and procyons, sometimes we call on algol, so we definitely need algol sometimes. Okay, there are things that are pretty fucking scary. Okay, let's say when a bus driver told me the address that I'm living in and asked which apartment is it, at that night I later called on algol. Okay, the entire street was off with the electricity was off in the entire street later, and there were only women on the bus with the same driver. Okay, so that was that was the thing. But it's not with the same driver, but later things got patched. That was an algol case. Okay, that's an algol case. Don't waste your time. That's an algol case. You call on algol. But if somebody says a word that I don't even know where they're coming from, or they says a word of criticism, is not even saying that to me, and there's not even that, that's a time to call on Procyon. Okay, that's a time to call on Procyon. And Procyon, it sweetens things. It's kind of like, you know what? I think you need a vacation. You know what? I bless you that you will have a vacation. I bless you that you won't have to work this hard to make a good living. I bless you with this. So instead of criticizing me that I'm sitting on the grass and recording videos, I'm blessing you with the ease and the leverage to sit on the grass and do whatever you like for a while. Okay, I bless you with this. Instead of you criticizing me, why won't I bless you so that you can have some too of this perceived fortune, and the way that you perceive that I'm fortunate, that I will be fortunate too. You know? Okay, this is more Procyon. Procyon is like, why won't I make you a cup of coffee? Come here. You've been working so hard. Okay, you've been working so hard that you see me lying like this and relaxed, you get triggered. So come here. I'll make you a cup of tea with some honey. Okay, put some lavender in it. Come, rest. Enough work. Okay, that is Procyon. And this is what I suggest you to do. Okay, whenever the moon is going through this 25th degree, it's opposing Pluto, call on Procyon. You want to sweeten that. Now, and the moon ingresses into Leo, applying to square Jupiter. So moon squares Jupiter in Taurus, great fortune. Okay, Jupiter is doing nothing bad. Venus is not close enough to it just yet, and she's ruling it retrograde. So I can't say I would make a talisman on this day, but you can have some good fortune. You can have some good fortune that is a material, that is joy. Maybe you're listening to, maybe you write a song, okay? And that is a bit of a privilege. And then the moon will conjunct Venus. Okay, 16th here is the new moon. Now, before the new moon, which I will talk about, before the new moon, okay, talking about sweetening things, we have a pack of Orthodox people singing songs right now. So they're making like loud voices and singing. Um, so I'll have to attach the mic closer so that you can hear me. And now the way I might, let's see what happens if I turn the camera on for a second. I want you to see my weird face. This is how I look like. No, you can't see me. You can't see me. You can't see me. Anyway, Moon will conjunct Venus retrograde. And Venus retrograde at this point is actually trining Chiron retrograde. So, once again, okay, the Me Too veterans of the world are speaking up once again about their wounds. Once again, they are healing. And because, yeah, if that aspects something harshly in your chart, you're gonna get triggered. But other than that, it's way more pleasant than when Venus was tightly squaring Uranus, which is now moved to the 23rd degree. I remember when Mars was on the 22nd degree, I think it was of anything, okay? Then I said, oh, it was in Cancer, because I used Procyon. I said, Mars, the 23rd degree of Cancer is a lovely place. Come over, come, let's go, okay? Because we wanted to move from the 22nd degree. But then Uranus is moving closer to Algol. So you have to, you can't have everything, right? So, and the Sun is on the 22nd degree of Leo. But before we have the new moon, right before we have the new moon, we have this conjunction with Venus retrograde, more exposure. Again, Me Too veterans pouring their heart out. You're just gonna have to suck it. Like, and that's okay, that's life. Now, I want to. Oh, it's gonna do the. Oh, let me. Will it? Oh, it's going to do all that. No, I'm going to go to the lunation because we are on a lunation on the 16th, and this is a new moon. August, lunation 13%. Battery. Yeah. Very good. 16 August. 23rd degree, and we are very lucky to have the new moon on the 23rd degree of Leo, not the 22nd. Yes, it's still applying to square the notes. Not to square the notes, to sextile and trine the notes. And it is exactly square Uranus. So here we have a happy revolution. A performative, this is good for a gay pride day. Like, this is such a great day to do a gay parade. Like, because it's performative, it's Leo, it's feathers and stuff, and Uranus in Taurus is still Uranus in Taurus. It's weird colors, it's space shows, it's Alien Superstar, the Beyonce song, Alien Superstar. It's Iniko, which recently released a video to her Jericho single, so which is very much like that Uranus Taurus. It's that type of weird, fascinating, exciting, new, never before seen type of thing. Perhaps only like the 80s, but that's just very lovely. So you can have nice shows, nice demonstrations. I think about the demonstration where people were throwing tomatoes at the painting at a museum. I think it was in England, and that was kind of to show that people don't care about environment, but they only care about the paintings of the nature. Um, so we can have such a demonstration, okay, like people literally throwing tomatoes at somebody, um, or at a leader, that can be kind of, absurd or humiliating, um, or something like that. But it's also a really great time to make very cool music, the sound of the revolution. It's a new moon. Okay, so the moon is not yet visible. You want the moon visible if you want to launch something, but it can very well be the case that something is sudden ideas, a eureka there, of something that's going to be executed later. If you're writing a satire, if you're making performance, if you are, um, poetry slam, stuff like that, that can be a great day. Is it not dangerous? I can't, like, it's still moon squaring Uranus, even on the 23rd degree, yes, it can still go rowdy. It's still explosive, but it's not that to kill and be killed explosive. Okay, it's controversial. It, but yeah, can there also be like suicide bombers and such? Yes, there can be, but it's like one less signification of the death, and a little more of the joy of rebelling. Okay, striking a key against society. The king is naked, okay, or the queen is naked, kind of a thing. That can be the case. Lilith is only 1 degree away here, so do not underestimate the tension here between Lilith, which is the protector of the woman body, and Uranus in Taurus, which is more the desirous nature to get into the sensual pleasure that our nervous system as an entire species can bring us. If that sounds weird to you, you're in the right crowd. If that sounds weird and exciting for you, you're in the right crowd. Those are the things that can go here. If you are speaking up the voices of women who work in industries to do with performing with their body as a tool of empowerment, okay? So whether that's a sex worker or an activist that uses the body and uses even nudity to say something, kind of like it's a good, like great gay parade, gay slut walk day to schedule. Yes, it can be a bit risky, but Lilith here is quite performative. With Uranus Taurus, that can be a clash of revolutions. Okay, so two rebelling forces, and there's a clash of revolution. One woman says, "You will not tell me what to do with my body. I'm going to use nudity, and it is self-empowerment for me." The other one says, "You know, I don't know. I like to put my feet, Jupiter in Taurus, on the soil and erotically and ecstatically dance with the land, and I find that to be a better revolution than to go on weird parades and stuff. It's like, okay, let's do it naked, and then you're like, okay, let's do it naked. And then they resort and they solve this tension that they have with the desire to protect the material, the body, the sensuality, with the desire to perform, to receive attention, and to rebel. So that's the day. And then if you want to be a fly on that wall, then you really got to be cautious, because you can so easily get caught with the popcorn in your mouth. Like I said here, you're gonna get caught with the popcorn in your mouth, and you're gonna become a part of the show. Okay, so now these ladies are stripping you, and making into female clothes, and they're not even asking anything because you weren't supposed to be there in the first place. It's like, it's kind of that if you enjoy that kind of scenario, it can go well, but if you don't, then you can get quite traumatized as a result. Oh, that was the full moon. I was talking about the lunation. That's what it's doing, okay? That's what it's doing. It's not doing very much outside of that. And as with lunations, it's also trining Aries. Um, yeah. Do we have... No, we don't have asteroids for this. But this is the lunation. It's a new moon. It's the beginning of something that is provocateur. It's kind of a weird release, but there is also tension with that release, okay? People are going to need to lash out in a very rebellious way. And, if you're at a food party, it can get quite intense. It's going to be a food throwing party. Moon ingress into Virgo. So the moon is going to go over Regulus, and then the moon is going to oppose Saturn. Again, this couple of hours when the moon opposes Saturn, okay, you feel like you're on Judgment Day. And the judges aren't so lovely. So, like, prepare your stuffies ahead. For this one, it's only a couple of hours, and know that if you're feeling, sad, or you might want to take a rock or a crystal, because Saturn rules crystals. So some blue, like, well, Larimar, I don't know. If you can get your hands on an ethically sourced crystal that has to do with ocean energy. I don't know if Larimars are ethically sourced. I don't think they have them ethically sourced. But if you can get your hands on one that's ethically sourced, that's the best. And as well to remember that even if you didn't buy it ethically sourced, that you can pray for these children that mined it, and for them to have a better solution, because not to buy crystals at all, I remind you, will just put them in guerrilla wars and child trafficking. So you get the point, right? You get the gist of it. Not that this is not child trafficking and child labor, but it's kind of like it's those weird conversations. Then the moon will proceed to conjunct Mercury. Nobody changed any sign. Nobody did anything. Nobody got retrograde on me. Everyone's cool. All the planets are cool. Thank you. Moon conjuncting Mercury. So moon conjuncting Mercury, only 4 degrees from Mars. And the entire parade is kind of applying to oppose Neptune, okay? Like, it's applying. No, it's not opposing Neptune. But you can't expect the communication to be clear, even though Mercury is in Virgo. Communication is not clear. There's this nice trine to Jupiter, and in the beginning. So the moon trine Jupiter is kind of cute. Venus squares it. So Venus retrograde is not talismanic cute, but it's kind of cute. But then there is this applying trine to Uranus, which is a very interesting day, because what's going to happen is that this moon is going to conjunct Mercury, very unclear communication, maybe even somebody tried to fish or to hack into somebody's account or something like that. With Neptune, it can be viral, so maybe you're part of a mass hacking or something. Then we have Mars moon squares Uranus, trines Uranus, and opposes Neptune. So this trine to Uranus and opposes Neptune, it's kind of like, you're delusional. What am I going to do about it? I don't know. Strike a chord, strike a key, sing something, rebel. Rebel the reality that you see. What reality is in that an illusion? No, you need to rebel. Okay, so it can the mix is of you take refuge in a demonstration or a revolution, but there is some sort of disillusionment. Okay, so you may be disillusioned at the Pisces area, or somebody Pisces in your chart. Like, oh, these Pisces, they really let me down. You know what? There's a political demonstration there, or there's a gay parade there. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there, and that's probably what you're gonna do. But the moon does conjunct Mars, opposing Neptune. Accidents, boundary issues. If you have substance, um, I don't know if substance abuse is the right word, but if you're dealing with addiction, okay, then that can be a time where you want to pull your self-care kit and kind of make a list of the things that help you, and make memory, like put something there to remind you to use them on that couple of hours, because that's where you can have a bit of a relapse. And we have this trining, it's like it's trining Uranus and it's trining Pluto. So we have this almost kite shape. Okay? It's a very weird combination. And I don't have a smart thing to say about this, but you're gonna feel the need to speak up anyway, probably. And you understand the underlying power, but it's disillusioned with the beliefs you have about rebellion. Okay, and I want to actually go back to the moment where they passed the structure. They passed the laws that are gonna allow the structure to become orthodox more than a state can afford itself to be and remain a rational player in the international arena. So this is like the day we became Iran. And on the one hand, you had like this terrible legislation of the government. On the other hand, all the media that was bought by the forces of the revolution. So all the media bought to put this black like screen. All the media bought. It's like the government is not okay, but there's something really wrong here too. Okay? You can have a moment like this, both on a mundane level and on a personal level. You can be disillusioned with the forces of the revolution because they portray just as plutonic as, plutonic is not a bad thing, but plutocrats kind of new oligarchy, okay, something like this. But oligarchy is not the right word for it. So when I say oligarchy, I don't mean a particular group of oligarchy. I mean like wealth, like hidden wealth that's not necessarily serving you either. So it's kind of like, those are not good. Those are not really the rebels that I thought that they were. Like, there's something off. So, yeah, and you really don't have, like, the places where you're trying to sort this opposition are not really yielding. This is what I'm seeing with this. Because this is just straightforward disillusionment with something. Okay, but there can also be other solutions that are, like, there is the eureka to dissolution, and there is also this deep transformative understanding that now you are more like, it's a spiritual experience of just understanding these things in a way. So moon is void of course in Libra, here in Libra, until it gets to the 16th degree with sextiles Venus. So we're gonna have a bit of a void of course moon in Libra. Later we'll sextile Venus and then sextile Lilith and the Sun, and conjunct Ketu. As we proceed, August 22nd, the moon squares Pluto again and later trines Saturn. So it squares Pluto and conjuncting the nodes and conjuncting Ketu, and then trines Saturn. Yeah. The conjunct of Ketu will also be conjuncting Humia, I believe, by this time. And it's a time to connect with nature and contemplate about legislation around nature. Is it washing? Is it supportive? Does something need to change? What do we need to let go of? And the moon square Pluto is again just this emotional crisis around legislation to do with fertility. It's basically how I see it. And later the moon will trine Saturn, retrograde Saturn in Pisces. It's moon trine to Saturn is not that harmful, but it's a Scorpio moon, so it's kind of like, you know, two people grieving in the dark, smoking, and perpetuating but you know, it's kind of like not the best. Mars is very much opposing Neptune, so the ruler of the moon is very much opposing Neptune, still in this kite shape, which is now seen. That is, you know, it has its upsides, but it's more like a spiritual experience than the ability to do something about it because of Neptune being here, you know, at the arrow. The moon on the 23rd of August will oppose Uranus from Scorpio. And again, triggering stuff. It will square Venus, some more Me Too veterans purging, and then oppose Uranus in Taurus. Okay? All things Uranus, Taurus, demonstration, explosives, revolution. Unfortunately, some social credit score is also that Uranus, Taurus, because that's just what it is. And this growing moon can bring something, some implications, some fiscal change that is permanent. Okay, Uranus changes are permanent. When Uranus makes a revolution, something is important actually. Because Uranus, when it revolts, when it changes something, it's a permanent change. Okay? Yeah. Before that, the moon will oppose Jupiter. But again, with the square to Venus, that is only resolved with a retrograde Saturn ruled placement, which is, you know, Aquarius. It's kind of icky. Like it's Jupiter, it's still a Jupiter moment, but it's not the Jupiter, the jolly Jupiter. Okay, it's a different type of Jupiter. It's a purgative Jupiter. Not by the merit of Jupiter, but by the merit of Venus and the retrograde Saturn. So Keep going forward. Sun ingress into Virgo and the moon ingress into Sagittarius at the same time on the 24th of August, while the moon is trining Mars. It's a sextile in Mars and Pluto, trining Neptune. We have a quasi-mystic rectangle here with Uranus. So happy ingress of the sun into Virgo, sun on Regulus. Moon squares it. Just a happy ingress of the sun. She is applying to oppose Saturn, so it's kind of a bittersweet happy. She doesn't get to shine that much with this ingress. So yeah, it's not gloomy, but it's applying to be gloomy. And the moon at least is ruled by Jupiter, which squares its ruler Venus. So some more Venus purgatories. Moon trining Venus in Sagittarius Friday. It's also a Venus day. So we have this Jupiter Venus, moon trining Venus, bringing in the square. So, you know, at this point of the Venus retrograde, unless it hits a trigger point in your chart where there's something like awful, it's just, you can even reminisce on something nice here. You know, it's not just sad. Like this one, although the ruler of Venus is, opposing Saturn, Saturn is already with Fumul out here probably. It's a nostalgia for freedom, but also constriction. You can be nostalgic about a time where you're both somewhat free and somewhat not free, but you kind of had the joys of that era. So you can find even the joy within constriction. Okay, times where you were in constriction, but you're actually finding joy in there. I had basically, I had a colleague when I was in academia that one of the things that I remember her saying was she was revolting in the army and then she got sent away, but in between that she was in the jail of the army, okay, which is very easy to get into. It's not, although jail unfortunately is the same. Yeah. And she said, in jail, I was helping the people or guarding the people or something like that, but I felt more free there. I felt free. I felt peace of mind. I felt at ease. She was in jail. So I felt at ease. Suddenly, not all this stress of the outside world. So it's kind of a moment where you reminisce of that type of ease. Not with the desire to bring it back, but it kind of like, you kind of reminisce of that time where you were constricted, your shine was constricted, but there were also joys. There was also something joyous to look around, to see, or to taste, or to touch. 26th August. This is Moon squaring Mars and squaring Neptune, so the T-square. Almost at the end of the month, Moon in a T-square with Mars on the anaretic degree, with Neptune on 26th degree. And yeah, this is supposed to be resolved with Mercury, but Mercury is retrograde. So Mercury turns retrograde. And it wasn't as if the communication was easy flowing before that. Okay? Now we just take a step further downhill. And this is the thing. If you work with Mercury Virgo talismans, you can ask them for clarity. My deepest recommendation is that you work with something like Procyon or Asclepius or something like that, where you can have a heart healing and sweetening of things, because you would need a sweetening of the communication. Mercury in Virgo is just clarity. Okay? You want to add into the mix compassion. So you can be both compassionate and have clarity. So that's what I think I'd do, but you're gonna have to see. You're gonna have to see how you troubleshoot that, because this is where Mercury now goes retrograde in Virgo. It's like we had Mars in Virgo, sharp words, or communication with sharp objects, which is even more horrid. Or I don't know, like I don't want to know. But Mercury going backwards, it's kind of like it's like we've already had this fight. Why are we going through it over again? Well, we're scheduled to do so. This is the rules. We must obey the rules. We're scheduled to fight right now, honey. We're scheduled to fight. And this is basically the thing, because it's a T-square of disillusionment and sharp objects going missing. So preferably somebody lost the gun, then they don't have to shoot somebody. But if you have to shoot somebody, you don't want to lose the gun. And it's supposed to be, it's like, but who do you need to shoot at? The messenger in this case. You need to shoot the messenger. But where's the messenger? They made a U-turn. But I'm scheduled to shoot the messenger. Well, the gun is missing. They made it. Maybe that's an omen from the universe that you shouldn't do it. And so, but I'll lose my job. You know, it's kind of like this. When the ruler of the point that solves the T-squared is the opposition of the top of the triangle, which is the moon in this case, in Sagittarius, when the other point is ruled by a retrograde planet, you kind of have a recursive loop. Okay? Honey, we're scheduled to fight right now. Is it right now? Didn't we talk about our schedule of fighting? That we can't do it right now. And if I say I can't do it right now, but this is exactly what we're scheduled to fight about. Oh, but this is exactly what I'm talking about, that I can't do it right now. So are we fighting? I don't know. We're scheduled to fight right now. It's those type of Monty Python sceneries that people actually have in their relationships with their bosses, with their spouses, at home, with the government, with all these type of communications. Like, we're scheduled to do this. Didn't we schedule to do this right now? It's like, well, what kind of? But didn't we talk about us being flexible about the schedule? And that thing is being kind of reiterated into this recursive loop. It's only a couple of hours, but there are also going to be very Monty Python hours for your communication. And so the moon will trine the sun as it enters Capricorn and the lot of fortune. And then conjunct Pluto. So we go to the second Moon-Pluto conjunction. So an entire cycle of the moon with Pluto in this month. And now we can, it's kind of like you begin this month. Let's say you begin this month and you hear a lecture about the occult of secret societies, the occult study in secret societies. And you have an entire month to kind of process this information. And the moon squares Pluto, sextiles Pluto, squares Pluto, inconjuncts Pluto, trines Pluto, first trines, then inconjuncts. opposes Pluto, then inconjuncts, then trines, then squares Pluto, then sextiles Pluto. Now the moon is again meeting, and now you're going back to this lecture. You have the next chapter of this lecture. And you are revisiting, you're learning more. It's like you've processed the previous information. Now here's another piece of information that you didn't pick up. Is another piece of that dust that we have in Capricorn there. Is another point of view, is another depth into this. Fortunately, this point, it sextiles Neptune, it trines Uranus, so the moon will trine Uranus again. And it trines Mercury, sort of. Mars ingresses into Libra, so it's applying to trine this Mars too. Well. It's a kite shape, but now the moon is not with the Mars, with the opposition to Neptune, but it's actually with Pluto, it's with one of the other forces. So you're meeting the Prince of Underground, and you're having an emotional date, okay? So you get to understand things. It's very deep and transformative, but it's not a harsh aspect. So you're in a point that facilitates more processing relative to other conjunctions, but the moon is falling. I guess it's very, very cold and very, very gloomy, and you're meeting with deadly information. But there are some beautiful colors in the, in the neighborhood, and maybe there's a nice demonstration that you look at and you can take refuge in that. And now the planet of action is entering the planet of this legislation. So it's kind of like, okay, well, we're going to do something about it. We are going to do something about it. So something is done about it. And even if it's not the right things at the right time, but the right people right yet, it's just cycle. It's not the end of the story. It's another chapter in the story. As we go to Moon in Aquarius, again, Moon in Aquarius, opposing this Venus retrograde, already in 12 degrees Leo. And so it applies to square Jupiter, pardon. And we're going to have this T-square with Jupiter. They're supposed to be resolved with Mars, and Mars is in Libra, separating from opposition to Neptune and trining Pluto. Now, with this T-square, there's more that we are able to do. Yes, Mars is falling in Libra, but taking action to change legislation, okay, is also an action. It's also an action. So this action that we can take about the conflict that we experience between the people, the leaders, some of them women, the land, and the religion, and even the children. So there's some legislation we can do. There's some shifting of the balance, some alchemy that we can do there with Mars in Libra, Mars in the scales. And it's not the most potent solution, but something at least is being done. And still there is a dissolution around the course of action that we should take with this Mars. Moon continues on to apply to conjunct Saturn. And so we have another cycle with the Moon and Saturn here closing. And Moon Saturn in Pisces is particularly gloomy. Put a reminder that this is a transit. You're going through this. You're not here. Some people will cross over. But this is particularly susceptible for temporary problem terminal solution, okay? So if you're in any way inclined, then um, it is around Fumalaut, okay? So you can apply to Fumalaut for psychic wisdom, but then for some people, Fumalaut can be dark. So you want to bring in the Procyon, okay? Procyon, which is tropically ruled by the moon, because it's Cancer, tropical Cancer. You want to bring in the Eclipses, which is also Jupiter ruled. So the Eclipses and the Procyons, charms, lucky charms, talismans that were previously made, call them in. Never mind the hour, just call them in. And or call something that you've prepared. If you have a talisman, if you have something prepared, or something that somebody prepared. It can even be a photo. If you can't immediately purchase something. So you call that energy in to sweeten and to smoothen and to facilitate the healing here, because you came to heal this, okay, not to die because of it. Very likely that it's not your time. Unless it is your time, it's very likely that it's not your time. And those are particular sensitive couple of hours, and with Saturn it can be, I read, and this is really I don't want to say trigger warning, because you know me, I'm one of my problems is that I forget to put the trigger, and so my entire channel is a trigger warning that limits the crowd, but it's also, I prefer it to be like that than for people to think, oh, she put trigger warning here, trigger warning there. Oh, she didn't put trigger warning there, it's safe, and then poof, they fall into their debts, and that's not what I like. I don't want that to be a minefield. I want you to understand there are no trigger warnings here, and only watch this when you are able to watch everything of it. And so, ahead of time, okay, you can prepare. A really dark thing that I saw relative to suicide was a person was calling the hotline for suicide, and they didn't answer. There was such a delay, and the person was so amused by the fact that there is no answer, that for a minute there they were just not thinking about suicide, and that is how they did not commit suicide that day. Okay, unfortunately, this is the type of this transit where people can experience that. So I don't have all the answers, and some of the things that I may say may even bring the emotions harder. So I don't know what's helping you, but if you know that this is coming up, okay, it's 30th of August in the Middle East. This particular conjunction, okay, if you're not too energy sensitive, adjust the timing. You know that this is coming up, okay? You know that the tunnel is coming up. So everything that helps you in these moments, you set it up ahead of time. So when the tunnel is coming, you're gonna have things to remind you of what you need to do to not get sucked in and die. So yeah. Now to the lunation. Right? Yes, so let's go to Astro Tools, and we go to the last lunation. We close the month with the last lunation, and this is the lunation in Pisces, full moon in Pisces, 31st of August. Full moon in Pisces, 7 degrees Pisces, separating from this Saturn, opposing Sun in Virgo, of course. We have an almost kite shape in the sky again in the context of this, but the moon itself, other than separating from Saturn conjunction, is not doing anything. I want here and the degrees. So the moon is separating from a square to Sedna, sextiling Pholos. I remember we talked about Pholos. I don't remember what it says. because follows here is the resolution for the opposition. So I want to do a bit of a study life with me. Follows, 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 asteroid, astrology, follows, follows. Okay, turning point. You know, it's like you're looking for the, oh, there's this thing that sextiles and trines this opposition. Maybe we can go there. And that thing is like Pluto or Uranus. Then that's the like that's our man or woman. So Polos. Let's go to Astrodine stone Polos. There you have the Polos symbol. It's okay to have the discovery. We're not going to do a full thing around it. Let's say the mythology. So it's a centaur, so half human, half horse. At the darker side to his nature is like Chiron, considered to be one of the more temperate of the centaurs. Hercules and Pholus crossed the path while the former was attempting to capture the Erymantian boar. Although Pholus entertained his guest, he gave him nothing to drink. When Hercules discovered a cask of wine, he complained about his host's avarice and demanded some of it. Pholus gave in and opened the wine, and the sweet scent attracted many wild centaurs. The centaurs begrudged Hercules, and the wine converged on it in a state of frenzy. Hercules tried to fend them off, killing many with poisoned arrows and driving others away. Pholus picked up one of the poisoned arrows and admired the fact that such a small weapon should be capable of slaying so many centaurs. But then he accidentally dropped the arrow wound on his foot, the poison killing him instantly. So, basically what they say about this, now that I remember, is, no, this one probably, yes. Basically what they say here is that this is where you get yourself into trouble. The sentence is like, I'm great at getting myself out of trouble. I'm even better at getting myself into them to begin with. Okay, I have this thingy 1 or 2 degrees from my Mercury, and it's evident. I'm a whistleblower. So, with follows, it's kind of like, you shouldn't touch that button. It's like, I know you should not touch that button that I just touched. Boom. So this is follows, and this is where I'm to escape to. So like, what do you have to mitigate this planet? Your demise. Okay. So that's the lunation. Maybe Moon in Pisces is not that bad, but what's it gonna do? It's gonna separate from Saturn. What can I say? They say that if a person has been in depression and suddenly they get a bit better, this is the most dangerous time where they can kill themselves. You say, why? The person's just been in depression. Now suddenly they have some power, they can go, they can do stuff. But the thing is that they're so afraid to fall and be powerless again that now they actually can do something. And there's a window of opportunity, and a lot of people take their lives in this window of opportunity. This is a bit of a trickery here because it's a full moon that is completion of something. So, and because of the nature of follows, your active release can be by doing something that puts you into trouble. It's like, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to get in some other troubles. I got this trouble next to me. I need to release that. Oh, wonderful, look, here is trouble there. And you get yourself into that trouble, into the next trouble. And so, but because the moon was, conjuncting Saturn right before this, then this is where I'm concerned that people may actually try to finish themselves off. And it is not like I have something smart to say that I know how to avoid this, other than I bless and hope that's not where you're going to take it, and it's not going to be necessary for you, and that whatever troubles you get yourself into, that you can get out of it, you know. Uh, but this is kind of a very troubling way to have a full moon. Because what's this moon doing? It's separating from Saturn. So you just got out of doom and gloom. Now you're able to do something about it. And the things that you're most tempted to do about this is do something stupid, which is actually a relief. Okay? So that's what's happening basically. It's not doing anything else. It's just this polus. So this is where, you want to release something. You understand you need to release something. And there's some information probably that's causing this because the sun is in Virgo. Emotional exchange of information or something like that. But then your resolution is to do something stupid about this. And this is quite a concerning ending. Okay? You might be able to get yourself out of this trouble, but it's quite an impulsive thing that you do in order to release the tension of the exposure that you've been through. So that's the month of August. All in all, it's not that there isn't fun and joy. There is fun and joy, but it comes out in peculiar ways. And it is the joy of relief from exposure, from being provocative, from finally releasing and letting go, more so than just having a nice cup of tea with someone this time. It's you're probably better off on the side of history if you are a woman that validates the voices of people who went through atrocities, or a man, but it's going to be more difficult to be a man at this month, than if you're not. If you are a woman that in any way invalidated somebody during the Me Too era, I suggest you repent or go somewhere where, go to be a monk for for a couple of months, retreat somewhere where you're safe, of course. So because there is a tension, okay, between Uranus in Taurus, which is Venus ruled, and even Jupiter in Taurus, and Lilith Venus, the trine Aries, okay? So if you in any way invalidated, and you try to think which part of being a woman do I tend to invalidate the most, and either repent it, okay, correct it, repent it. You're going to have the chance to correct it because they're going to come up. These people are going to come up. So you can either repent it, correct it, express your grievances if you have been the one who's been wronged. Okay, express your grievances, especially when Venus trines Chiron. You can express your grievances. You can actually have a resolution. Okay, you can actually have a resolution around this. and really express your grievances, okay? But if I want you to think about what part of just being a woman have I been invalidating? What facets of the experience of women and being a woman in the world? It can be a trans woman, it can be gender fluid, gender queer, it can be those who are considered the feminine and you're not even seeing them as women, like concrete people, that by you they're people. Sometimes they're men, but they're being seen as feminine. Occult, intuition, okay? Occult, intuition, intuitive wisdom, the occult / feminine side of men, okay? Sexuality, anything about sexuality, whether you're monogamous, not monogamous, sex before marriage, not sex before marriage, like sex work, not sex work, okay? Which type of the human experience have you been invalidating, and or erasing, and how can you correct that? How can you repent that? Okay? How can you be more accepting of the various experiences of being a woman? Yeah, that's the Venus retrograde. And that during this month can bring the more closure, the more connection, the more kind of loving and radically accepting and repenting aspects of having a Venus retrograde. And that can basically, if you've dramatically wronged someone in the sense that you've invalidated their reality of the experience of abuse that they've been through, or erase their voice from the discourse, okay? Invalidated their testimonial of the atrocity they've been through. If it's something as serious as that, of course, to repent and to correct is very important. But I also suggest that you will also take some time to retreat, okay? Because you're gonna need some time alone. You're gonna need some time alone. It's not gonna be an easy conversation. And if you've been a man who's doing these things, okay, just doing these atrocities, then of course, granted that you are desiring to be, a human being, not, some, but this is important to surround yourself with retreating. If you have wronged, if you've tried to silence, if you've tried to oppress somebody that spoke up, okay, around 8 years ago, okay, this is a very good time, even if you are a woman, if you've in any way taken part in silencing someone at the time where it was 8 years ago, this is something that you want to pay very close attention to. You want to correct, you want to, these people, they might come up in your life and you can get closure. but you also want to be able to have your own safe space here now, because you're gonna be exposed. Okay, you're gonna be exposed. You're gonna be exposed, and if you've done something more serious to that, if there was money involved, if money came into your pocket by seducing someone to file a complaint and then leaving them out in the cold to have their life threatened, like a lot of the Me Too veterans had endured, um, think about the most difficult thing you put a person through. This is where you're probably going to be exposed for. Okay, they're not going to get you for the thing that you did that was they're going to get you for the actual thing. They've been doing that for 8 years. So if this is the case for you, if this is the way in which you've hurt a woman, a trans woman, or whatnot, this would be a good time to think things through, deeply repent. But if there was atrocity there, it's Venus retrograde, but she also trines Aries. Okay, she also trines Aries, and Aries is with Rahu, so this is where we are heading. Okay, it's also a very good time, like I said, to treat people with respect, even if things are weird to you, their gender, their identity, identify as this, identify as that, just treat them with respect. This is very important right now, because these people have had enough of having enough, and Aries is not known for being overly prosionic. Okay, so that is like, I can't really stress, this is not a good time to abuse women. This is not a good time to mistreat women. This is not a good time. Definitely not anything to do with victim blaming. Okay. And I can't stress that enough. Okay, I can't stress that enough. Even things that you didn't think were doing harm, you're gonna find out what was doing harm. But if you actually did something like really nasty, yeah, it's gonna be out there because you've caused harm. Okay, you've caused harm. You maybe even caused the life of someone. And when the voice in the discourse was not expressed, okay, you've marginalized them so much so that, you're gonna be really exposed. And it's something that is not an easy thing to go through. Okay, it's not an easy thing to go through. And here, because of this tension, mainly it's those women that were cooperating with what we call the patriarchy, but it's also human trafficking and child trafficking. Okay, so those women with ghetto in and those women that were close to the scales, so trade, child trade, trading women that were involved with that, and they are going to be exposed. The women that were involved with that, okay, they are with Ketu. Okay? With Rahu, trans women, transgender, trans people, okay. It's like you gotta think about who is the marginalized in society, and how do we accommodate for them? The children, the women, the queer, the trans, the people of color, people who lived in certain tribes and so on and so forth. because, you know, it's those people. And it's a good, you can correct things. It's very possible to correct things. You can correct things, you can have closure, you can have more understanding. You can repent, okay? You can repent. And if it's that much atrocity that you've done, it's going to be exposed, okay? If you're close to the scale of trade, the scale of justice, and those people who were wronged, okay? They're with Mars now. They're with Aries Mars now. And this Venus in Leo is very strong, okay? They're going to be seen, they're going to be believed, as Venus is going direct. If you threaten someone, if you silence someone now, and I know personally, I know a case like this, someone silenced someone. Venus is retrograde, darling. She's going to go direct. You send a letter to threaten now in 2023, you send a letter to threaten people to not speak up. Now in 2023, you send a letter to threaten people. Okay? So if you threatened yourself, and that's why you did these things, if your life is threatened themselves and that's why you did these things, okay, then first of all, I pray for you, and you're going to pray too. This will be resolved in a way where you're no longer harming people and you are safe. So I pray for you that something like this will arise, even if by miracle. That's why I say take a retreat, go somewhere, okay, where you can get an escape if you can. And I pray for you. If indeed this is the case and you don't actually want to harm people and you're just life threatened, if this is the case, then I pray for you. But if this is not the case, if now in 2023 on Venus retrograde you send letters to threaten this, to threaten this, to threaten that, darling, Venus is going to go direct, right trine in this Aries. You are with Ketu. You are about to be purged from society. Simply put, okay? So this is for, so it's not easy to be a man in this month. If you are a man that's trying to silence people, you know, if you're using women around to do this, if probably the women are going to be exposed, but you know, you only have, you know, 9 years, and then in 8 years this will be again, but now with Ketu in Aries. You understand me? So Ketu will be in Aries. Okay? So don't do stupid things, because maybe you'll have 8 years of mercy, but then Ketu will be with Aries, and the rules will change. Okay? So don't rely on something being old, some case being old, some this. Don't rely on this. Simply put, repent, tend to do good, sow good seeds. If you believe in something, pray. If you believe in the nervous system, then make requests from the higher self or affirmation or whatever tools work for you. Because right now, this is, it's a very potent Venus. It's a very, very potent Venus. And she, as I got by Crossy, when she returns from her invisibility, she is going to not be all that strong, okay, as the evening star. Okay, she's not going to be all that strong. It means that the people now that are at the wrong side of history, you know. And what was 8 years ago? It was me too, right? Then what is happening now? It's another wave of exposure. And so for 8 years, if you're trying to silence someone now, in 2023, no good. No good. Not at all good. So this is, I did not expect this, by the way. I was not expecting something good for women. I was expecting something not good for women, but then the day Venus turned retrograde, okay, the day before she turned retrograde, I saw a certain lady being exposed, and she turned retrograde. That lady sent somebody to threaten someone who was taking part in the exposure, although they said things that were proven right in court. And I say, okay, this Venus is retrograde. This lady is sending this stuff, which I had expected she's going to do something like that. But Venus is going to go direct, and she's going to be trying in Aries again when she goes direct. This is no good. This woman, no good, no good, no good. It's not a bad thing for humanity, but if she's doing it because her life is threatened, because this, then I pray for her that she will find a way out of it, so she will not hurt anybody, and she will find a way out of it, because it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And I did not expect it going like this, but it can go like this. And it also, if the evening star Venus is not so strong, then it can be like this, and this can be why it is allowed to be like this. Okay, so this is one of the things that can absolutely happen. I did not expect it going this way, because I've never grown up expecting that something goes in my favor when it comes to these things. But that was something that is happening, and in this way. This is the most important message for you. This is the most important message for you. Although the world is crazy, but particularly what happened 8 years ago, I see now. I think people were speaking up, and our planets, our gods, are, they admire, they appreciate when a person speaks up, when a person is courageous, and so for those people that were a part of bringing greater awareness, then there is some grace. Okay, there is some grace, which is surprising to me in a good way. So there is going to be some grace for you, even if it's not 100% justice that should have been. There is going to be a lot of grace even. And it is important to side with the side in history that's going to make you sleep good at night. You know what I mean? Because it's about doing the right thing. It's about doing the right thing at this time. But with Mars, at this moment, it's going to be very blurry. It's going to be very difficult to see what is the right thing to do. What is the right thing to say? Okay? So, yeah. This is August.